Funded Today Nation, welcome back to the Funded Today podcast. Last time we spoke about how to make big money on Amazon. We covered some of the most important fundamentals to being successful on Amazon. If you're doing anything on Amazon or are thinking about going to Amazon, make sure to check that one out. Today we have a wonderful guest, Gregg Mercer, who's the founder of Jungle Scout. We're going to discuss how tools like Jungle Scout can give you an edge over your competition on Amazon.
The Funded Today podcast is brought to you by fundedtoday.com. Funded Today is a premier marketing and video agency. From startups to crowdfunding to Amazon and beyond, Funded Today has helped their clients generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. If you'd like help launching or growing your business, visit www.fundedtoday.com to speak with one of their experts.
Welcome back. I'm Thomas Alvord. Today I have Gregg Mercer from Jungle Scout with me. Welcome, Gregg.
Thomas, thank you very much for having me on. I am excited to chat with you.
And I'm excited to chat with you as well. As a brief recap, in our last episode, we discussed some of the most important aspects to optimize to really get your Amazon listing off the ground and generating revenue. Give it a listen because understanding the fundamentals of Amazon are critical. Now, let's get into today's show. Gregg, you have a very fascinating background. How long have you been working with Amazon listings? 10 years?
I think I started in 2011 or 12. So 7-8 years.
Okay, almost there at the 10-year mark. So how did you get into Amazon?
Great question. So if we rewind, I went to college to be a civil engineer, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, got a job as a civil engineer, and quickly found out I wasn't very happy with it. I wasn't very fulfilled. My whole life I had had this strong entrepreneurial spirit, and sitting in my cubicle writing engineering reports, I found just weren't for me. So I was just Googling like how to make money online, how to start a business, what to sell, et cetera, et cetera. And through that, found out about selling on Amazon. FBA was starting to take off. And as a result, now Amazon would store and ship your goods for you. And that's really how it all started. I started off by launching a couple of products on Amazon, and kind of the rest is history.
Interesting. I don't know if you know my background. I was in law school, and my brothers had a company, and they were making money in their sleep just with Google AdWords running. And so in law school, I started learning online marketing because I thought, man, this is amazing. And so I wasn't planning on getting into internet marketing either, but it's kind of just what has happened to me, I guess. It's kind of the route I've taken. So it's kind of fun to hear somebody else. And I kind of look back thinking, man, I should have went and studied marketing in school, but at the same time, seems like a lot of that's theory, whereas a lot of what really matters is the hands-on. And I imagine that's what you got experience doing. If I understand correctly, you do over 10 million with your different listings and products that you've launched on Amazon?
Yes, last year, so 2018 was right around that number. Over the years, I've kind of continued to grow it. I'd say up until last year, now the majority of my focus is on Jungle Scout, which is the software product, as opposed to my Amazon business. So I still do run my Amazon business. It still kind of keeps me in the game of kind of what's happening, what's working. But there is a team to kind of help and do all the majority of the day-to-day type stuff there. So yeah, if I were to give you a little bit more of an intro about me, for those of you who aren't familiar, after I launched a few products on Amazon and started to pick up a little bit of success with it, I then quit my job as a civil engineer. My wife and I actually sold all of our belongings, including our house and our cars and all of our stuff. And we started traveling around the world. And we actually were full-time just nomads for 3 years. We had no home. We had no possessions. And I was just running this business remotely from different countries all around the world working on this. And through that time, I was able to continue to grow the business, reinvest in it. That led me to what is Jungle Scout today, because the hardest part for me to grow the business was finding new products to launch on Amazon. So that's really the best way to grow your Amazon business, is just to launch more products. What I found is there's kind of there gets to be a little bit of a diminishing return with listing optimizations once you get it to a certain point. So after that, some of the listeners might listen to this and think man, how do you get to 10 million a year in sales or what have you, or what they may think of as a large number. And it's ultimately just repeating the same process of continuing to launch more products.
Yeah, that's really interesting. as we have been analyzing and working with some of the different listings internally in our company, we've discussed, and I'm curious your thought or input, is sometimes we'll have a product that we think will do really well, and it simply doesn't work. And then you have some obscure product, right? And we're not coming and creating our own products, right? These are our clients that are coming to us. We're doing the listing optimization, the photography, right? The whole works. Sometimes you can't really tell, you don't really know until you bring it to the market. You can have an idea, right? Especially with some of your tools to see, okay, how much search volume, how much revenue the competitors are getting. But sometimes we get these products that it kind of out of left field catches us by surprise. And we're like, man, we never thought this product would do so well, but it's doing boku bucks. Have you found that with your products?
In general, yes. I would say I still launch new products. I'd say in the past year or two, I probably have around an 80% success rate choosing new products and launching it. The other 20%, I'd end up not reordering because I found that either they were getting bad reviews or the sales weren't as what I expected, or there was too much of a price war going on and the margins just aren't there. So yes, even though I have a lot of data to really help me, make these decisions about what's going to do well or what's not going to do well, 20% of the time they still kind of turn into failures.
Yeah, and that's actually an amazing batting average if you're talking about business, an 80%, right?
Yeah, that is true.
I mean, most businesses are going to fail. That's the reality, right? Most businesses are going to fail. And the problem, I think, with entrepreneurs is we always love our idea, our product, and so we don't think it's going to fail, right? We don't see that. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be pursuing it in the first place. And obviously, right, you have the process, and that's what you teach at Jungle Scout. And a lot of the stuff you have for free on YouTube videos and podcasts, right?
Yeah, we do. We have tons of free educational content around it.
I want to dive a little bit into how you launched Jungle Scout or why you made that transition, right? Because it seems like people listening might wonder, or even myself, if you're doing almost 10 million or so in gross revenue a year on Amazon, I would think, man, that's an amazing business. I'm just going to stick with that, grow the team, keep doing this. But you've pivoted in a way, right? It's kind of a natural extension of what you were doing already. It's in the same niche, in the same market. But I'm just curious, why Jungle Scout and why not simply continue to pursue what you were doing before?
Great question. I'm glad you asked it because that's something I battled with for a long time. I launched Jungle Scout in February of 2015, so about 4 years ago now. And really for the first 6 to 12 months, that was kind of the constant battle I was having in my head. I was thinking, I'm pretty good at this Amazon thing, there's no real ceiling in sight. What I'm doing is kind of repeatable and scalable. I can continue to launch more products. Cash flow was an issue, but I knew how I would be able to take out loans to purchase more inventory if I needed to do so. I was confident I'd be able to grow the team. So, I was this Jungle Scout thing, I launched this Chrome extension. It's starting to pick up a little bit of traction, but what if it's just a distraction? What if this is something that doesn't really pan out to be anything? And then a few years from now, I just look back and just be like, dude, you should have just focused on your Amazon business. You knew what you were doing there. You already had a business that was working. During that time, though, the little bit of the mental shift that I had was I realized that, I kind of was earning enough money from this business that no longer was I making decisions purely off financial motives. So if I'm being honest with myself, my first few years in business, pretty much all the decisions I was making were just purely financial. At the time, I was worried that this business would fail the next day and I was going to have to go back to get the job. And that was always the thing scaring me. Or I was worried about this or that or the other thing, or how long this Amazon thing's going to last. I didn't know. So I was really just kind of trying to make as much money as I could from it in a short period of time. And then once I kind of got to a certain level, I don't know where it was at, but I kind of stopped having those fears. I was like, okay, well, even if it all disappeared tomorrow, which I think all entrepreneurs always think it will, even though it never does.
That is so true. Because
yeah, that is true.
Well, and it seems like you might be in a market that declines, but it's not just going to end the next day, right? I think over time you'll see the writing on the wall.
Overnight. Right. So I think once I made that mental shift, then I started thinking about okay, how do I really want to spend my days? What's the most fun way for me to spend the days? What do I like hop out of bed and being most excited about? And at that point, the selling on Amazon wasn't quite as exciting to me anymore. I had launched dozens and dozens of products. It was a repeatable thing. Like I had built out SOPs and I could give them to someone else and they could kind of repeat the same thing. So the challenge wasn't there and I wasn't really learning very much anymore. And what I started to realize is like those are some of the things that really brings me a lot of joy, having like new challenges and learning new skill sets I wasn't familiar with before. And I think once I made that mental shift, that's when I started to think like, okay, like the whole, I've never created a software company. Like that sounds pretty fun. That sounds pretty challenging. I don't know how to code. I'm at least going to have to probably learn the basics in order to talk to developers. I'm not familiar with internet marketing. I'm going to have to learn a lot of that to drive traffic to my site. So it was all these skill sets that seemed kind of like new and exciting to me. And that's ultimately how I chose to make the transition.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you started with a financial motive, right? Which makes sense. You're not doing it just for pleasure or for fun or for charity. You're doing it because this is your job. But then once you kind of had yourself grounded, it was stable, it was bringing in the revenue, doing it again and again and again, it was just monotonous, it was boring. So you wanted to go on to bigger and greener pastures, you could say, have new experiences for learning. And so Jungle Scout was the avenue to do that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, after talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, just like I know you have, Thomas, I think that's actually something that is often happens quite often with entrepreneurs. Like I'll sometimes see people like write in the comment section, like of our YouTube videos, like, why would you be giving out all this information for free? Why are you going to teach people these your secrets, like whatever else? And when you're kind of like just getting started and like just trying to make those first few dollars or whatever amount of money makes you feel like kind of like secure and comfortable with it, it's hard for you to think that people choose to do things that are kind of like work related because that's what brings them the most amount of enjoyment. They're still kind of have like this like limited thinking about just, how could you make the most amount of money essentially.
Yeah. And what's interesting too, right? There's people who talk about the disruptive innovation where you actually give up your own market. And Amazon's so big, right? You teaching this isn't like really going to hurt what you're doing because the market's just so massive. Right. But it's also seeing, I think, well, because other people might look at it, why are you giving this up? But I think that's also having a scarcity mentality instead of an abundance mentality, right? And so
that's exactly right.
And that's another thing I think with a lot of successful entrepreneurs, they have a mentality of abundance, right? And I think from the outset, that's why they go and they pursue new businesses because they believe there's an abundance and that they'll be able to tap into that and reap rewards from that. Whereas people who have a scarcity mindset, I don't know if they ever go to launch a business. So yeah, that's really interesting.
One of the kind of funny things about that, Thomas, I'll just add to that is, and then it kind of turns out having more of like an abundance mindset, more of like a giving mindset usually ends up being better for business as well. You know what I mean? So then it's like, once you kind of have that mindset and like your thinking is like to give, like give to the community, give out free training, all these different types of things that is actually usually a good business play too. But, people without that abundance mindset, it's really hard for them to do.
So what was the first tool that you went and built with Jungle Scout and why?
The first tool is the Jungle Scout extension. So those listeners of the podcast who aren't familiar with Jungle Scout, what the Jungle Scout extension is it's a like a Chrome plugin, and you can visit Amazon. Once you've installed it, you click this little Chrome extension, you see like a little pop-up, and in that pop-up, it gives you a whole bunch of information that lets you know a better idea about different factors kind of like of that opportunity or of that niche, including how many units each of the listings are selling on, let's say, like a monthly basis. So this was pretty, or it was very innovative at the time, in January or February of 2015 when I launched this thing, because prior to that, no one had any idea how well any product on Amazon was selling. So all of a sudden, I released this Chrome extension. I'm exposing how well all the products on Amazon are selling. And now all of a sudden, instead of people just kind of guessing what's selling well, they can actually see the hard numbers. So that was the first product, and it took off pretty quickly because of that.
And you're using different data points, the Amazon bestseller rank, to estimate, right? These aren't the exact numbers, but estimates of about what they're selling or what a listing or product is selling.
That's correct. We here at Jungle Scout have a data science team, and that's actually their sole job, is to be able to figure out how to build the algorithms to estimate how well these products are selling on Amazon. We just finished a case study about this, comparing like Jungle Scout's estimates versus a lot of the newer entries like the Jungle Scout copycats. Our median error percentage was 15%. So that's a good way to kind of think about it. So these aren't exact sales numbers, but if we're estimating it selling 100 units per month, it's really somewhere between like 85 to 115, kind of like on average. So it gets you in the pretty close ballpark. These aren't going to be exact numbers by any means, but that's close enough that you can make well-educated decisions about kind of what's selling well, and get you thinking about what types of products you'd want to sell.
And we use Jungle Scout internally as well with some other tools. And it really is a powerful tool to help you gauge what your revenue might look like, as well as some of the other tools you have to gauge some of the competition and see where you would need to rank. Now, you also have a keyword tool, right?
Yes, we do. So inside of the other Jungle Scout product, our web application, there's a tool in there called Keyword Scout. That is very powerful for doing keyword research, as well as having an understanding about exact or broad match search volumes for all those respective keywords.
Now, what would you say in terms of what people are wanting or what you're currently working on? What are some of the things down the road that you're currently working on, or that you're thinking, oh, maybe a year or two down the road, we're going to have this tool? Or are those kind of the core tools and that's just it?
Good question. So we actually have a lot of other tools, as well as a lot of other things that we're working on. One of the things that I'm most excited about, and I think actually when this podcast is going to be released, we will have just launched this feature, but it is the Supplier Database, and that's going to be inside of the Jungle Scout web app. And let me tell you a little bit more about it and why it's innovative and very exciting, really for anyone in e-commerce, not just Amazon sellers. But what we've done is we've taken import trade records. Okay. So whenever you import something into the US, you have to fill out some paperwork, you give it to the government. And then through the Freedom of Information Act, we can actually get those different documents from the government. And we've structured those inside of our database in such a way that they're easy to search and filter through. And those are useful for a number of reasons. One, you could just search for your type of product and see what factories around the world, not just in China, but all around the world, are making that type of product. But my favorite way to use it is actually to figure out what factories your either competitors or, say, like the best sellers are using. So I can go on Amazon. I can find, let's use, I sell marshmallow sticks. Let's use that as an example. I can find the highest rated marshmallow sticks. I can find that company's legal name, and then I can search through the import records to see what supplier or factory they're using to manufacture those marshmallow sticks. So it's super cool and a great way to find high quality factories.
That's awesome. Just maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I was talking with a friend of mine, and his background is doing imports. I think he's been in the business for 20, 30 years. And I wasn't familiar with it. And he was explaining what you're sharing with me and all the listeners right now, which is incredibly valuable information, because you can then figure out how to source product from manufacturers that are more likely to be reliable. Now, is that always going to have the data? Let's say somebody manufactures domestically in the United States.
Great question. So no. So since these are import records, these are only going to be goods that are manufactured in another country and imported into the US. And to your point, Thomas, I've met some people that work, let's say, like at Walmart and for Amazon Basics and a few of these other big companies. And I quickly realized that like these guys aren't using like Alibaba or Global Sources or whatever else, right? This is like the primary way that they find factories, is using like this trade data. And then of course the big companies also have some agents kind of like on the ground in these different countries as well. But yeah, like really up until now, it's kind of been a little bit restricted to the big boys. If you're buying the data or if you're getting the data directly from the government, they charge tens of thousands of dollars. There are some other services out there that provide it. However, they're kind of like built for these big companies, right? So the one that I was using, I was paying $800 a month, which is pretty expensive for your average Amazon seller. Whereas we've taken all this, we've organized it much better. And then, even with your $40 a month subscription for Jungle Scout, you can access it. So I think it's going to kind of be like a game changer in the Amazon space.
That's absolutely incredible. And if anyone doesn't understand how significant it is, well, just know it's significant. That's incredible. That is a game changer, a huge game changer. Now, I heard that some large companies, they have a way to hide or not disclose or have a different name for who the manufacturer is or something, so you can't get that data.
Yeah, that's right. Some of the really big companies, they know that you can get this data through the Freedom of Information Act. So what they do is they essentially just build or they just create like a shell company in Hong Kong or wherever else. And they make this shell company the like exporter on record instead of the supplier or the factory themselves. So it's not a perfect system by any means, but just in my experience, it seems like probably for 90% or more of the time, I can find the actual supplier that they're using. And I noticed, I've been playing with it for the past few weeks because we've been testing it. And there's still tons and tons of records for a lot of these big companies that I know do have those shell companies also. If you just do like Amazon and Walmart and whoever else, right? Like Patagonia, North Face, a lot of those you can still see all their factories. So it's pretty cool. And then your normal Amazon seller, if you're just trying to take their factory, I doubt there's like any Amazon seller, with their small businesses that go through the hassle of creating a
hide who they're manufacturing from. Yeah, that's really fascinating. And when is that coming out? End of Q1 or of 2019 or?
March 26th is going to be released.
Okay, yeah, so about a couple weeks after this goes live. That's awesome. Now, I want to talk just in terms of entrepreneurship and starting a business. What would you say are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned in launching a business and pivoting and building a team, motivating employees, etc.?
Man, I've made a lot of mistakes. I learned a lot of lessons. I'm trying to think of those which are kind of most valuable for those of you listening to this podcast right now. And in the early days, some of the best advice I have, and a lot of people listening to this are probably kind of like thinking about starting a business or kind of like young entrepreneurs just getting started. And, I would hear or read or whatever else that like entrepreneurship's like primarily like a mental game. When I was just getting started, I was like, oh man, that's BS. Like, I just want to know like how to rank this product on Amazon or how to do this. Or like, I was just looking for like purely tactics. And over the years, I realized that the people telling me that were right in the fact that you're going to hit a lot of challenges and road bumps along the way, and you're going to get really discouraged, and that's going to happen often. And when I meet successful entrepreneurs, I think one thing that they all have in common is that they're all able to kind of like power through those things. And the people that usually end up failing or giving up or whatever else, they're just not quite able to really just kind of have like the mental stamina to kind of like power through those, because it just feels like you're getting knocked down like every other week, like, oh, this guy's a hijacker on my listing. Oh, Amazon lost my inventory. Oh, like this happened, whatever other thing happened in the business. And it's really important to just continue to power through those things and just understand that a lot of these challenges, what happen. I mean, this is part of being an entrepreneur. It's not that easy. Otherwise, everyone would do it. But if you are able to power through that, it's very rewarding. And I'd highly recommend everyone tries.
So it's the mental stamina.
I think so. I think that's the biggest mindset, or I think it's like the biggest tip I can give for everyone listening to this. I can give you a lot more tactical stuff too, but that's the first thing that jumps to mind.
Yeah, no, that's great. One of my favorite quotes is by Henry Ford, where he says, and the listeners have heard this before, whether you think you can or you can't, you're probably right. And so I've also had other people that I've consulted with who for literally 10 years, they've been thinking about launching their business. and they don't do anything. They're like, no, I'm not ready. I need this. I need that. It's like, dude, just go out to 5 businesses tomorrow and pitch them. I don't care if you don't have anything. Just get going, because you're never going to know how the market's going to respond. You're never going to know if it's going to work or not. You just have to go. It's, the hard knock life, but it's also the life where you can have substantial success too. And so I really like that. It's that mental fortitude, that mental stamina.
Yeah, I like that quote a lot.
Now, where do you see, you've been with Amazon kind of in the nitty gritty for 7-8 years, it sounds like. How do you see the Amazon ecosystem continuing to develop, as well as Amazon continuing to develop? Where do you see things being in 5 to 10 years from now, both from Amazon as well as like the ecosystem?
Yeah. So looking into my crystal ball, of course, is only my opinion, but I have recognized a number of trends. Let's start biggest picture here, like Amazon, the marketplace as a whole. I just don't see any other marketplace catching up with them anytime soon. I just read this very in-depth data-driven case study or white paper a couple weeks ago, essentially about like the success of Walmart and Jet and Target and Google Shopping and a lot of the other marketplaces that are trying to gun for Amazon, or should I say lack of success? Because in 2018, they, like Jet went from like something crazy, like 40 million visitors a month by the end of the last year, down to like 15 million or something like that. So just in 1 year, like they really died a lot, like after the Walmart acquisition. Walmart doesn't seem to be doing very well. It doesn't seem like Google's able to capture that. So one of the things that Amazon was really smart of doing is just like really focusing on this fulfillment network throughout the US, because that builds like a really nice moat around their business. And I just don't see anyone catching up to that like in the next 5 years. There's just kind of like no one even really close right now. So I think Amazon's definitely going to continue to succeed for the foreseeable future. One of the other things that I found pretty fascinating is we follow a lot of like the market trend data, because it kind of helps us drive our overall strategy. And Amazon's also shifting more towards a marketplace and selling through, their 3P sellers versus like vendors themselves on the 1P side. So a few years ago, I was actually kind of worried about like, oh man, like is Amazon, they started to release their private label products. So I was like, oh man, is Amazon just going to turn into, or are they at some point going to try to kick all these third-party sellers off their platform? And a few years ago, I would have been worried about that. And now it's really fascinating to see that they've decided to do the other thing. They've decided to stop selling a lot of these products themselves. You might have seen the news in the past couple of months that they've stopped placing purchase orders for a lot of their vendors that they had through Vendor Central or Vendor Express. Yep. I think they actually killed the Vendor Express program, but they stopped placing a lot of the purchase orders. And they've made a number of other moves that has indicated to us that they're more focused on the third-party sellers. And if you think about it, it actually does make sense. They're guaranteed a 15% commission, well, roughly, depending on the category. They don't have to put in, any capital up front or take out any risk of what might sell or what might not sell well. And their third-party ecosystem's strong enough that they can still have, or it's even better for them to even create like a bigger catalog for their end user. So that's kind of a fascinating trend, that they're trending more towards just a pure marketplace versus selling the goods themselves. So that one's pretty interesting.
And to clarify, for those who might not be familiar, Greg, the Vendor Central is one of their platforms where businesses sell their product wholesale to Amazon, and then Amazon is doing everything else. They're running the ad, they're selling the product, they're handling the customer support, everything. Whereas the Seller Central is this third-party seller where you can just log on, you can list your product, and you can sell it, and then you're just selling it and to the consumer, and Amazon is not buying it wholesale from you, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying that, Thomas. Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised to learn that a lot of actually just shoppers on Amazon don't even realize it's a marketplace. They think that they're just buying all these products directly from Amazon, where more often than not, I think we're up to like 55% of the time right now, they're actually coming from third-party sellers.
And to clarify too, and you mentioned this earlier, and these acronyms are familiar to us, but others who might not be familiar, FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon, a lot of these third-party sellers on Seller Central will send their product to Amazon. They're not selling it to Amazon. They're just sending it to Amazon's warehouse, and then Amazon is doing the shipping and fulfillment, and that's where you get the Amazon Prime. And so in that sense, it might look like Amazon is the one doing it all, but it's more just Amazon saying, hey, we'll handle the shipping and handling for you and store the product in our warehouse. And then they take some extra points or revenue on top of that as well. But it still is just the Seller Central.
Yeah, great clarification.
Where do you see Jungle Scout going in 5 or 10 years?
Fantastic question. This crystal ball is not quite as clear to me. Our mission is to empower and inspire Amazon sellers and really just like be their business partner in everything that they're doing. And that's what drives a lot of our decision making here at Jungle Scout. So we are solely focused on the Amazon channel. So, I don't foresee us going multi-channel or focusing on any other channel really ever, but at least for the foreseeable future. And then beyond that, like the only kind of like, or the North Star that's guiding our decision making is what can we do that's most helpful for Amazon sellers? So, like we set company metrics, and those are the things that everyone's kind of like rallying around and that we're all pushing every day to improve on. And, those 2 company metrics that we're managing is the number of sellers who launch their first product on Amazon. That's one of them. And then the other metric is increasing the amount of revenue that's kind of like managed in our systems. And the way we look at that is the more we can do to help our customers do better on Amazon and build more successful businesses on Amazon, the more that like we'll be successful as well. So those are the things that we're constantly measuring, and that helps drive all of our decision making. So, that means improvements to our tools. That means better education. We about a year ago, we launched a marketplace so that our customers could find pre-vetted Amazon experts to help them with their business. That part of the business operates at like a small loss. Someone asked me like, well, why don't we just kill it since we're losing money on it? It's like, well, you have to keep in mind like our broader mission. It's to help these Amazon sellers. So even though we're losing a little bit of money in this marketplace, this is where our customers are going, or even people who aren't our customers, but just our audience. This is where they're going to hire service providers to help them with their business as well.
Now, and how is that? Because you take a percentage, right, off all those transactions?
Yes.
Or just in terms of the development cost and maintaining it and continuing to develop it based off of where it's at right now. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly right. When you factor in, we have a small team of developers that work on it, a product manager, we're driving paid traffic to the site, all those different types of things. It still loses a pretty significant amount of money, even compared to just like the commission we take off those sales.
Interesting. Yeah, you said something I really liked, and we've said this internally at Funda Today often, is that focus on how we can get better results for our clients. In our business, we charge typically a percentage in terms of a crowdfunding campaign, a percentage of how much the overall campaign raises, right? If we're running the marketing. And so in that case, it doesn't really matter what we're invoicing. Our focus has to be how can we generate greater results for our clients? Because then naturally, by extension, it means our invoice is going to be bigger and we'll make more money and the pie's bigger and everybody wins. So I really like that those 2 metrics that you share are really focused on how are we helping other people? And kind of going back to what we talked about at the beginning of, hey, why are you giving away all this content for free, right? It's about how can you provide value to other people? And if you do that, then you don't need to worry about the money. The money's going to come. You just need to figure out how you're going to charge people, but it will come because you're providing that value.
Yeah, I love it.
So any last comments, Gregg, before we sign off here?
My only last comment is, I guess if you're listening to this and you are interested in selling on Amazon or want to find out more about it, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, we have tons of free educational resources around it. Jungle Scout has a really good YouTube channel. We're releasing a few videos per week. Then also, if you just head over to our site, you'll find all the free resources section, a few blog posts every week and whatever else. So yeah, if you're looking to either start your Amazon business or to continue to grow your Amazon business, hopefully you can find a lot of our free educational content useful in doing so.
Wonderful. And your content really is great.
Thanks, Thomas.
And so I can vouch for Jungle Scout's content, for Gregg's YouTube videos. It is great content. And if it wasn't, we wouldn't have had Gregg with us. So thanks so much for being with us, Gregg.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, that's our show. We talked about how you can use third-party tools like Jungle Scout to increase your revenue on Amazon and how to have an edge over your competition on Amazon. And next week, we are going to talk about SLCRR. It's an acronym that we created internally at Funded Today. And each letter, obviously being an acronym, represents a paradigm or a question where you can go and analyze your business and see how can you grow your business. I'll give you a hint. One of them we already talked about. One of the R's is how can you generate additional revenue for the clients you're working with? Because as you answer that question, you will be able to grow your business and invoice more. So SLCRR, we have blog posts about it, and we're super excited to really dive in, to really discuss this. So that will be on our show next week. You won't want to miss it. And remember, don't wait until tomorrow. Get funded today.
Funded Today is the worldwide leader in rewards-based crowdfunding on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Combined, they have raised over $200 million and counting for thousands of new ideas and inventions worldwide. If you've got an idea for a new product or invention, visit fundedtoday.com to speak with one of their experts.